these are the kinds of people taking up the Great Munro Challenge, because anyone and everyone is taking to the Scottish hills these days, which is quite different from the last century when Sir Hugh Munro himself scrambled up the crags. He was one of the original pioneering members of the Scottish Mountaineering Club, a club still going strong today. And although the Scottish mountains have stayed much the same over millions of years, apparently the kind of people who scale them have changed quite radically.
Most of the members of the club at that time were either well off and had time to go and explore because there were very poor roads. There was no motor transport. Railways they had, of course. And the original members did some incredible days. There's tales of getting the train to Dalwhinnie and cycling cross-country to Ben Nevis and climbing on Ben Nevis, spending the night in the observatory, which was then working on top of Ben Nevis, and cycling all the way back to Dalwhinnie and getting the train home again. It really puts us to shame. It's so easy for us nowadays. The equipment which they had was very poor, just ordinary boots with hobnails in them. They all wore, I think, Norfolk jackets. All the pictures you see of them are of men in Norfolk jackets. One of the original members, Sir Hugh T. Munro, who lived somewhere up near Kirriemuir, was a very keen hill walker, and he walked up all, except I think 2 of the what became known as the Munros, and tabulated them into Munro's tables, and that was in 1891. He was one of the landed gentry, and he was interested in the hills, and because the club had been formed, and nobody really knew very much about the hills in these days, and he had the time, so he obviously thought of this idea to tabulate them all so that people would know more about them. And there was a great deal of exploratory walking in these days. He was quite a character, Sir Hugh Munro.
Now, as soon as anybody makes a list, you know what happens. People like to tick that list off, and hence we have Munro baggers. What they have to do is get to the top of every single peak on that table and then make a nice little pencil tick at the end of the day. Now, you might say to yourself, what a healthy, lovely outdoor pursuit, and indeed you'd be right, but there are some people who take it a little bit far.
Munroitis. Yes, a perplexing condition. First identified, I believe, by Dr. Jungfrau in his paper Summit Psychosis in 1958. Essentially a modern ailment. Sufferers are not normally recognised until well into their erratic behaviour patterns.
Every weekend, I must get a tick. They must get a tick. Aye.
It was a challenge, wasn't it?
The challenge.
The challenge.
Communing with nature.
It all seems so innocent. All that's happened is the purchase of a book about the Munros. You see, the Munros. They can shrug off the occasional weekend disappearances with excuses about fresh air and exercise and breathtaking scenery.
I go up a hill so I can see a view from it.
You see fantastic countryside. It's an incredible landscape.
Aye. I'll get you out in the fresh air.
Exhilarating.
Plausible enough. They actually believe that they will be able to control the urge building up within them. Classic symptoms soon emerge. They slip away to the hills on bank holidays. They show an unhealthy interest in waterproof clothing and stout footwear.
The boots.
Sensible boots.
Stout walking boots.
He's got waterproof trousers on.
Extra jersey, extra pair of socks.
Aye.
There's no cure and no inoculation can protect you. All that can be hoped for is that the 277 summits are completed as quickly as possible, and that the patient then goes back to windsurfing.